So today I want to talk a little bit about the surface area to volume ratio. I know you didn't do an actual lab with it, um, but we can kind of talk about the big ideas together. Hopefully you've gone through and you've kind of played with that interactive, so you were able to see how surface area and volume relate to each other. And we're just going to kind of go through what you should notice with that. So the big question, really why we even think about this, is why are cells not giant? Why are we multicellular instead of unicellular? Right? Why do we have all of these cells that we have to count on to do their job rather than just having one big cell that does what it's supposed to do and carries out all of those functions? Kind of like, why work in a group? You can work individually. Well, when it comes to cells, it has a lot to do with this idea of surface area to volume ratio and diffusion rate. So if we have 3 cells, or 3 cubes, and their dimensions are 1 by 1 by 1 centimeter, 2 by 2 by 2, and 3 by 3 by 3, and we get the surface area, so you calculate the surface area of each of the sides, you get 6 by 24 and 54. If you calculate the volume, right, so to do surface area, you would do height times width, and that would give you the surface area of 1, and then you would do that, multiply that by 6 because you have 6 sides, and that's how you get that value. The volume is length times width times height, and that's how you get this value. Notice that this is centimeters squared and this is centimeters cubed. And then if you look at the ratio between those, so 6 divided by 1, the surface area to volume ratio is 6. 24 divided by 8, you go to 3. 54 divided by 27, you go to 2. So what is happening as the cubes are getting larger? What happens to the ratio of surface area to volume? It gets smaller, right? So as one increases, the other one decreases. Now, this becomes an issue when you look at diffusion efficiency. So these are numbers from last year. We had cubes made out of agar, and then we calculated the percent diffusion, or the efficiency rate for diffusion in those. And so these are based on 5 millimeter diffusion rates. But what do you notice? So as the surface area to volume ratio decreases, the diffusion rate, or the diffusion efficiency, also decreases. So as the cell gets larger, the ratio gets smaller, but the efficiency gets smaller as well. So now, practice for yourself. Make sure you can describe the relationship between increasing cell size and surface area, and describe the relationship between increasing in a cell size and its surface area to volume ratio. Then make sure that you can explain how surface area to volume ratio affects diffusion rate or efficiency in the cell. Make sure you can put this in your own words. Make sure you write it down. Okay, so now we're going to get to cells. Again, why aren't we all just one giant cell? Why did we choose group work? Well, a lot of it has to do with this concept. So the cell, all cells, exchange substances, either taking in nutrients and oxygen or getting rid of wastes, cellular wastes, through the cell membrane, right? So that's the surface area portion. And it needs to be able to do this efficiently. It can be active or passive depending on the substance and the concentration gradient, but it all goes through the membrane because that kind of is what keeps the inside in and the outside out. The surface area, or how much membrane you have, is going to dictate the amount of exchange that can occur. more surface area, more exchange of nutrients and gases into the cell, and faster diffusion of wastes out of the cell. Volume dictates the amount of materials that are needed or that are going to be produced. So more volume, more nutrients and gases that are going to be needed. Also, bigger, more volume, the more waste is going to be produced. So now you have these two kind of conflicting things going on. As a cell becomes too large, the ratio of surface area where things are going to be transported to the volume where things are being produced becomes too small, right? Because the amount inside is increasing faster than the outside. So again, as you get larger, your ability to diffuse materials through the membrane is going to decrease. And so cells have a lot of interesting little tricks to increase their surface area to volume ratio. One is to have these really long cellular extensions. So you see these in things like nerve cells. So they have that cell body, but then they have these long extensions. Another is to have a thin, flat shape. So if you think about red blood cells, not being just a perfect square or circle, but having that thin shape is going to increase your surface area to volume ratio. And another one is to have these invaginations, so those kind of folds. And this is like an example of what villi would look like. That's going to increase surface area as well. And we see all of these themes in cell specialization, right? So the villi in the intestine, also in the lungs, or in the respiratory system. You have those invaginations. You see the red blood cells, you see the neurons. So these are all strategies or adaptations for increasing surface area to have better efficiency of transport. So I hope that was helpful.